comment or asking a question. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Transportation Policy Committee. I will go down the list of members alphabetically. Please unmute and indicate if you are present. Mayor Anderson. Mayor Borowski.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Butler. Jen Daniels.
Here.
Thank you. Doug DeClusen.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Edwards. Mayor Freeman.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Gallego. Vice Mayor Garland.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Haney. Spencer Camps.
Present.
Thank you. Supervisor Lesko. Councilmember Manfredi. Kevin McCarthy.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Osborne.
Present.
Tyler Pace. Mayor Pizzillo.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Poston.
Here.
Thank you. Mark Reardon. Jack Sellers.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
I'm here.
Thank you. Chair Wheatley.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember White.
Present.
Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Before we proceed, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Spencer Camps and Kevin McCarthy, who have been appointed by the Arizona State Legislature to the Transportation Policy Committee. And Mr. Camps was appointed to represent the residential housing development, and Mr. McCarthy was appointed to represent a taxpayer association. So please join me in welcoming them. We will move on to the agenda. Our next item is call to the audience. I have received one request to speak for call to the audience, Mr. Kevin Hoy. MAG provides the opportunity to submit public comment, written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with the committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. And I know we have received a written comment from you as well.
Correct.
But you have 3 minutes for the record. Thank you, Mr. Hoy.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for allowing me to take the time to highlight some of the very important issues in our community. First, I'll just give you a quick overview of our community and what our request entails. We are in East Mesa called Chrisman Creek Village. We're about a 275 home community. We're located between Chrisman Road and the US 60. We're actually right on the US 60. Our community was built back in 2005. Our community has been plagued with one major issue for over 20 years. The elevated US 60 freeway, cars, trucks, motorcycles can be seen and heard 24/7 due to the lack of any noise abatement barriers. In 2016, ADOT completed a noise analysis technical support. It concluded that current and future traffic noise volumes would exceed allowable decibel levels between Chrisman Road and Meridian, and 5 noise barriers were recommended. Now, this was 10 years ago. In 2019, ADOT was moving forward with its plans to upgrade this freeway section to include sound wall noise barriers. Our community and others were ecstatic. After about a year went by, we didn't see any other action that was being taken up. So I contacted ADOT and they told me that the funding had been removed from the Regional Transportation Plan for Maricopa County, and a time frame to bring this project back was unavailable. We were very disappointed. However, we went into action. We decided to make sure that we got those projects back onto ADOT's list. So we created a YouTube video kind of illustrating the negative effects of the 60 that has on our lives every day. We spoke to the consultant that did the noise study that I referred to earlier. We held a community event in the fall of 2023, invited the City of Mesa Council member Alicia Goforth kind of walked her down to the freeway to kind of show her how it impacts our community. She was shocked, and she was there to support us, and she has ever since. Also been collaborating with Armida Siad. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She is awesome. So I want to tell you that right now. She's kind of helped me navigate through the ADOT and TIP planning process, which is a little complex, but I've learned quite a bit. So, so why is this sound wall needed? Well, in January 1st, 2001, a semi truck crashed through a house in our neighborhood, killing one man and several others, injuring several others. We want to reduce the noise. We want to reduce the pollution, protect our families, and it is the right thing to do. So what I'm trying to do is ensure that projects MAG 20 RTP 044B and 045B remain on phase 1. They were moved to phase 3, which I think was like 2043 for implementation. They have been since moved to phase 1. Thank you very much for whoever did that. And we just want to make sure that that continues forward and that one of these days our community will have a sound wall. So that's it. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hoy. We appreciate those comments today. Have we received any other online written comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have received no written comments for the consent agenda.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are we allowed to ask questions of staff regarding those comments?
Yes, we can ask questions. We just can't comment to it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Could I just ask that we get a little background and information off and what the process is from there so we could consider it and just have a better understanding?
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the TPC, I will address that as part of the freeway program agenda item. You bet.
Perfect. Thank you. Item number 4 is informational items for information only. And does any member of the committee have any questions or request a separate presentation on this item? If there's none, then I would move on to the consent agenda, which is item number 5. And items 5A through 5C are on the consent agenda. Do any members of the committee have any questions or request a separate presentation on these items? Prior to approval of the consent agenda, there's an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any items on the consent agenda. I have not received any requests to speak on this item. Have we received any online written comments for the consent agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, we have received no written comments for the consent agenda.
Okay. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent items 5A through 5C.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Orsborn, a second by Mayor Freeman. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote, turn on your cameras, unmute your audio. For those that cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. And we'll call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their camera. So please leave on your camera until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed, nay. Great. Please leave your cameras on, and staff, can you take a roll call for the members participating virtually who did not turn on their camera?
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I call your name, please indicate how you would vote. Mayor Scott Anderson. Mayor Scott Anderson.
She said she'd be here.
Thank you. Mayor Borowski, I believe you were on camera, but double checking. How would you vote?
I was, I think, but I didn't see myself either. So I was affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you. We will move on to item number 6. This is the draft Proposition 479 Freeway Life Cycle Program. It's on the agenda for action and will be presented by John Bullen, the Assistant Executive Director. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the Transportation Policy Committee. Happy to be here today to present on the draft 479 Freeway Lifecycle Program. This follows up several previous conversations that we've had, although it's on your agenda today for action. So to provide a bit of context, the 479 Freeway Lifecycle Program represents the financial management tool for the freeway and highway component of our Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Investment Plan. Part of the process that we need to go through is updating costs and revenues, as well as determining specific construction sequencing. When we put the plan together, projects were identified in 5-year phases for construction sequencing, and now we need to go through the exercise of identifying specific years. As I had noted, this really builds upon several presentations that we've had here at TPC before, first in February when we talked through several key concepts, and then last month when we went through the draft program itself. So as we're talking about the Prop 479 freeway program, there's some considerations that we need to keep in mind. First, we have a statutory requirement that the program has to be balanced over the term of the half-cent sales tax. So we need to build what we call a fiscally constrained program between fiscal year 2026 and 2045. As I had mentioned, we also need to work through the sequencing exercise. Specifically, we need to identify near-term project sequencing. Over the 20-year life of the program itself, there'll be a number of changes, but as we sit on the horizon of fiscal year 2026, it's really important that we identify those initial projects and get them sequenced. And then finally, there's been a number of changes since the plan was approved. Development patterns have changed, needs have changed. We've done additional study work, additional analysis, and so we need to start to incorporate some of those changes as appropriate. So building on what we had previously talked about, some of the financial considerations that went into the program, we used updated revenue estimates that were generated last fall. This follows our standard protocol. We've been doing this for a number of years in partnership with ADOT to update our revenues, and so those revenues are factored in as part of this program itself. As we had noted too, largely in response to the significant cost increases that we're seeing on the construction side, we've eliminated program debt. This saves the expenses associated with the debt and helps us keep the program in balance. One of the other concepts that we had talked about last month as well, we've really seen record construction inflation over the last 3 to 4 years. Over the 20-year life of the program, we've assumed that that's stabilized out. We'll still see some short-term increases we anticipate, but we're anticipating that we'll return to averages of what we've seen in this region historically. And as part of that, we're also assuming that we'll be able to take advantage of construction cost containment through value engineering exercises and really try and identify opportunities to keep the cost lower. In total, the program before you today, we're looking at an end balance of just over $500 million in fiscal year 2046. Although it should be noted, there are several projects with expenditures that extend beyond the life of the program. However, those expenditures would be supported by ongoing revenue streams that feed into the program, namely federal formula funds, as well as highway user revenue funds. So first, I want to touch on some of the project changes that we had worked through last month. Here you see a map on the screen of the project changes that are reflected in the draft program itself. I want to start first in the Southwest Valley. We have a Prop 400 project to build a direct HOV connection between Loop 101 Agua Fria and Interstate 10. As part of the 479 program, we also identified a connection between Loop 101 Agua Fria and 91st Avenue, as well as 2 interchange improvements at I-10 and 91st and I-10 and 83rd. So given that this project is set to go to construction this summer, the Prop 479 improvements have already been designed as part of it. We'll actually see fairly substantive cost savings constructing these projects together, as well as addressing some of the more minor improvements at I-10 and 83rd Avenue and I-10 and 91st Avenue. So as part of the draft program, these projects have all been moved to the Prop 400 freeway program set to go to construction this summer. Down south of the valley, I-10 at Wild Horse Pass, we have a Prop 400 funded project again that will widen Interstate 10. It's the Maricopa County portion of the larger ADOT effort to widen I-10 between Phoenix and Casa Grande. ADOT had received a state appropriation for improvements there, including at I-10 and Wild Horse Pass. This was identified as a Prop 479 project. Now it will be funded through that state appropriation. Up in the Northwest Valley, we've talked through a lot of the challenges that we're seeing at US 60 and Loop 303. We've been working in partnership with ADOT as well as the MAG study to look at improvements up there. In the RSTIP, we had a project to build a new interchange at Loop 303 and Litchfield Road. After doing additional analysis, what we found, and also supported by public feedback, is that it makes sense to move that project closer to the Loop 303 US 60 interchange. And so we're proposing swapping the Loop 303 at Litchfield Road project with Loop 303 at 155th Avenue. And then finally, this is just reflecting updated study work that we did to reorganize, reorient those projects on Interstate 10 between the tunnel and the split. This builds off the study that was recently accepted by the MAG Regional Council and identifying initial sequencing of that project, where we would start first with the 51, take care of the mini stack, and then come through on Interstate 10. Next, I want to touch on phase 1 construction projects. So you see here is a map of all those projects programmed in the draft program in phase 1. Want to walk through several of the short-term ones, excuse me. Start first up in the North Valley, Loop 303 at I-17. So today, this is a interim system interchange. So you actually have to get off the freeway, stop at a traffic light, make a left-hand turn to get onto the 303. What's notable, a notable development really in the last couple of years, we have a significant amount of development coming up here, including the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. So because this is an interim interchange, you actually see traffic backing up onto the I-17 main line. So this project has been under design for the last several years, funded through state appropriation. It will be ready to go to construction. The program supports initiating its construction this summer. So this would be the first Prop 479 project to go to construction. We have several more in fiscal year 2026 contained in the program. We have I-10 at Jackrabbit Trail. This is another project for which a lot of development in the area is really overloading the existing interchange, is in desperate need of improvements. Finishing the Loop 303 up in the North Valley to complement that system interchange project, and then down in the Southeast Valley, turning State Route 24 into a full freeway. Today, it's an interim freeway, 2 lanes in each direction. You have to stop at stoplights along the major mile streets. So this would actually turn the facility into a full freeway. And then in fiscal year 2027, we have several other projects really highlighted by State Route 30. So the first portion, which I'll talk about later in the presentation, is building that new freeway between 97th Avenue and Loop 202. That's programmed for construction in fiscal year 2027. That's a $1.2 billion effort. But fortunately, we'll be able to go to construction as soon as final design is done, which is underway now, and then completion of the Loop 202 Santan out in the Chandler area. Finally, I want to talk about some of the notable project development activities. So you see here, when we're talking about freeway projects, it takes a long time to really get them queued up, to go through the formal engineering process, to take care of the right-of-way acquisition, to take care of the environmental work. So it's important we get projects queued up in a timely manner. Want to talk through several of those. You see here some of those projects that are intended to initiate scoping and environmental, the first phase of project development in the near term. Included in this, I want to draw your attention to the far East Valley, US 60 Superstition, Ellsworth to Meridian Road. You heard Mr. Hoy speak about this project earlier. This addresses that need out there. This is a project that was previously identified as part of the Prop 400 program. Funding was deferred out of the funded program back in 2020 when we had our last freeway program rebalance, and we had to defer a number of project costs. But in the draft program, you'll see funding in fiscal year 2026 to start the process. So this basically puts the project on the process to be able to move forward to ultimately propose construction as part of phase 1 as well. Several other notable efforts I want to call out, because we'll certainly have conversation in the coming years about them. You'll hear a lot about them. We have the SR30 Western segment between 85 and Loop 303. The first portion of the I-17 construction, so the old Maricopa portion of I-17 between the I-10 split and the I-10 stack. Advancing our planning study work at the I-10 inner loop into formal ADOT scoping and environmental analysis. And then up in the Northwest Valley, building of the full system at US 6.
If you could please mute your audio online, thank you.
Next, I want to touch on the final design activities that we also have sequenced. So this is the next step in the phase. We have final design, as I'll talk about shortly, on State Route 30, as well as final design of Loop 202, Loop 303 at 155th, and the I-17 West Traffic Interchange project. Next slide, please. And then finally, I want to walk through some additional considerations. So want to start first by really highlighting the State Route 30 corridor to reorient this committee. When we're talking about State Route 30, it's actually broken up into 3 different segments. We have the western segment between State Route 85 and Loop 303. We have the center segment, which is the most critical of the 3, between Loop 303 and Loop 202 South Mountain. And then we have the eastern segment between Loop 202 South Mountain and I-17. So a lot of work has been underway on the center segment of State Route 30. So really the first key component of that is extending the Loop 303 south to tie into what will eventually be the State Route 30. So that's a Prop 400 funded project scheduled to go to construction this summer that will soon initiate work. We've been in the process of acquiring a lot of right-of-way, doing some of the advanced utility work. But really, as we look at the State Route 30 center segment, this is a project that undoubtedly has been impacted by former Governor Ducey's veto. Originally, we had anticipated that we would be able to initiate things, accelerate things starting in fiscal year 2022. As a result of that, we're 2 years back, and you can see that reflected in some of the implementation schedule. As we had talked about at length last month, we've really gone through the process of trying to figure out what we can do to accelerate implementation of that facility. Just to give this committee a little bit more perspective too, here's the State Route 30 center segment. When we talk about the center segment, it's actually broken up into smaller projects themselves. The most eastern portion of that facility is under final design now, slated to be done in fiscal year 2027. We have right-of-way acquisition underway for the entirety of the corridor itself. More than half of the parcels have already been acquired or in the process of being acquired. So certainly a lot of significant progress has been made on the center segment of State Route 30. So as a result of that implementation workshop, a couple key concepts came out of that you see reflected in the draft program itself. We went from ultimately 5 different projects down to 4. That will accelerate construction by roughly 2 years. Want to continue with the right-of-way acquisition process, continue with the utility relocation process. And then the last recommendation, you see that reflected in the draft program, is to initiate final design on the balance of the segment. And what that will do is it will give us additional insight into some of the needs that we have. Drainage is going to be a major challenge. Some of those drainage facilities that we had anticipated would be there back in the teens haven't been built. And so we have to take into account updated drainage availability and sort of the other elements that need built. So you see here the proposed sequencing of that center segment of State Route 30. As I had noted, the first portion to initiate will be that $1.2 billion project between 97th Avenue and Loop 202. That includes the system interchange with Loop 202 South Mountain. And then the balance of the project will be constructed from east to the west.
John, can you talk for just a second a little more about the utility issues that you encounter in this?
Yeah, certainly. So particularly as you get towards the western segment of the State Route 30 center segment, there are a number of very high voltage power lines that require coordination with the utility providers, whether that be the APSs of the world. WAPA is another big one. So these are massive power lines that take multiple years to relocate. The other really big utility challenge that we have too is there's a water line that runs along the corridor that ultimately feeds water to Palo Verde Nuclear Power Plant. That water line crosses State Route 30 center segment in 4 different locations, requiring additional encasement. And really our time availability for that encasement is limited because you have to work on the schedule of the utility provider and namely take advantage of the dry up seasons. And so really those factors, particularly as you're talking about the western segment, present a lot of challenges for us in terms of time. But certainly we've allocated funding to be able to move forward with those additional right-of-way needs, those additional utility relocation needs as quickly as possible to really prep the corridor for construction. So in the draft program, we are recommending initiating final design in fiscal year 2026. This is about a $100 million effort in and of itself to give you perspective about the scope of the size of this project. $100 million for final design, obviously very expensive, but it's reflective of the total cost of the project itself. That will really fast track the project for now and allow things to get on an accelerated schedule. And what we'll do is we'll continue to work with ADOT to look for opportunities. What else can we do to advance? What other opportunities do we have to leverage resources to really accelerate this project? And then finally, I just want to touch on a few more elements. The draft program continues the litter landscape and sweep that we had allocated in Prop 400. We continue those freeway sub-programs that really allow for the efficient management of the program itself. We have the $10 million set aside, updated annually for inflation for the minor improvements. And then in the 479 freeway program, we have funding for the pavement rehabilitation. So the first project slated will be the 51. And shortly behind that, we have Red Mountain between State Route 51 and Priest. So just looking ahead, really the fiscal year 2026 freeway lifecycle program is a moment in time. We'll go through this iterative process to update it. As I had noted, it is in balance. We were able to balance it despite the significant construction cost increases, but there is very little flexibility. So if we do see changes on the revenue side, if we do continue to see significant cost escalation, we will have to revisit the program itself. Fortunately, this is an annual endeavor. And so here's a schedule to give you perspective about when we will be revisiting the program. This fall, we'll be working with our partners at ADOT to come up with updated revenue estimates. We'll also be leaning on ADOT come the winter time to come up with updated cost estimates. And we'll bring that all together and bring it before the Transportation Policy Committee next spring before considering approval of the fiscal year 2027 program update. So with that, Madam Chair, be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, John. We were testing your ability to stay focused and you passed. So we appreciate that. I appreciate you touching on Mr. Hoy's comment and question. And so that part of construction does include a sound wall.
Madam Chair, members of the TPC, so the specific sort of elements of that construction will be determined by ADOT as part of the project process. But as Mr. Hoy had indicated, previous sound measurements had warranted the need for a sound wall. Those measurements are largely based on traffic volumes, which have only gone up. So we can't commit today that there will be a sound wall, but I have a high degree of confidence there will be.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Do we have any questions or comments from committee members? Yes, Mr. Sellers.
Yeah, John, you said that state funding was going to be available for I-10 Wild Horse Pass area.
Yes.
Are we confident that that money is going to be available?
Mr. Chairman, members of the TPC, so based on ADOT's latest estimate, they've been working through that process. We're right about to initiate the design build phase of it. And ADOT is confident that funding will be available for that component. Yes.
Okay, I know there's some major budget issues ongoing, so thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Osborne.
Yes, thank you. John, you took away all my talking points, so clearly you knew what I was going to be talking about. But the State Route 30, fully supportive of the 479 life cycle plan. And we're excited about the investments, not only in the West Valley, but across the entire valley. I was just giving Mayor Wheatley a hard time about, I've never even heard of 24. So I mean, that project clearly is not important to me. That's not true. It is very important. I actually have driven that stretch. And so there's important stuff over there, and there's important stuff actually throughout the region, and that's what you're trying to address. And this is not an easy task, and I completely understand that. There are needs everywhere. It's just like creating the plan, and there's only so much funding in the near term to go around to take care of those challenges. And I recognize the significant challenges related to the utility relocation, and want to thank you all for your continued efforts to identify opportunities to accelerate the delivery of the entire State Route 30 corridor. I think is what I'm keying on is specifically that. And that said, the 8-year time frame, I think when ADOT, what really triggered this was when ADOT came in and said, we'll have the center segment done. So I guess all 4 of the mini segments, that total center segment done by 2035. That was a sort of a sticker shock date for us as a community, and I think the West Valley also. And that timeline raises concerns, particularly around cost escalation, the risk of delays that could impact future State Route 30 segments or shift priorities within the overall Prop 479 plan. So even though that center segment gets done, we'd like to high five and say we made it. But everybody that is coming from the west, which includes at 303, getting on that State Route 30 still has to get back to I-10 to make their way entirely into the center of Metro Phoenix corridor across town. And if it's not getting back to 10, then it is every east-west roadway that is between the 202 and I-17 that is going to be clogged. State Route 30 is essential for the West Valley and our residents, both in terms of relieving that severe congestion and also unlocking the economic development opportunities that are headed our way. So with that in mind, I know you talked about a couple key things that MAG is working on, but we'd respectfully ask that MAG and ADOT revisit the current schedule for State Route 30 center segment and bring forward potential strategies to help move the project forward more quickly. And this could include exploring public-private partnerships or alternative delivery methods. I think we had mentioned that previously, and I know that that is something that is being discussed and maybe met with a little bit of hesitation also, or any other tools. And I don't know what those are. I'm just a mayor from Buckeye, but I know there are other ways of accelerating projects and helping the timeline without compromising quality or cost efficiency, and without compromising other projects in the region. And the intent is not to drain all of the funding to one specific project. I realize this is a massive undertaking, and we really appreciate what you guys are doing today. And I think it's an opportunity. The whole Prop 479 program is an opportunity for us as an agency to really push our partners in finding more efficient ways to relief from the congestion in a very short time. And I don't know what those are, but there are opportunities out there. We appreciate you all looking to try and find those opportunities. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. So yes, if you don't mind, I'll ask a question real quick. So John, what would the potential impacts be to the Prop 479 program if a P3 was used for a project of this magnitude?
Yeah, good question, Madam Chair, members of the TPC. So as we talk about P3 in the state of Arizona, it's statutes that essentially permit a more specialized type of design build. So with a design build, you need to have all the funding up front. And so to look at, it's about $3 billion for the construction effort of State Route 30. We would need to look at how we accelerate the full $3 billion worth. We talked about the issuance of debt. If we did issue debt to accommodate that, that would add additional expense to the program. You'd have to look at sort of pushing other projects out. I think our experience with the South Mountain Freeway facility too, when we did a design build there, it sort of consumes much of the construction resources from the region itself, and you need cash to build up on the front side and the back side, and it crowds projects out. But it certainly has financial challenges, or could have potential financial challenges. It could have project implication challenges, and then there's also the question of what do you get for it. So as I had talked about some of the utility relocation work, those are risks that exist with or without a design build project that we'll have to work through. And so what's the trade-off? But certainly those are things that we can analyze in more detail and bring back.
So essentially reprioritization of other projects,
Yes.
and then it goes against the debt service, the non-bonding
Correct.
debt service that we have currently in the program.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have a comment from Mayor Pizzillo.
Thank you. You know, I echo Mayor Osborne's comments. I don't want to repeat everything he said on there because he pretty much covered everything I was going to talk about on it. I know. Well, with that being said, I appreciate all your efforts. I know it's challenging, especially with costs as we go through here, but I can tell you our residents, traffic wise, is the feedback we're getting out there is just like everybody else, is a major concern of what's going on out there from a public safety standpoint to make sure our emergency vehicles can get from point A to point B, in a timely manner. So anything you can do to try to see if we can free up some more stuff on there. Because 25, what was it, 30, the time that you have on there right now would be really tough on there. And again, I know you're making tough decisions, and I know I appreciate all that MAG is doing. But we've got Buc-ee's coming for any of you that were there. Not Buckeye, Buc-ee's, remember now. And I've been told 100,000 people will go through there weekly. Okay, that's I-10 and Bullard. So, and that's going to be June of next year. So can you imagine what I-10 is going to look like when that happens? So just a thought, and I know we all have the same problems throughout the valley. Traffic, we're growing at a tremendous rate here, but just give it some thought. If you can do anything to evaluate that, would really, truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Mayor Whately.
Yeah. Not sure who this is. Sure. Mayor Wires.
Yes. I guess everybody needs to say what they need to say. We've all got projects that need funding today. Glendale just cannot support delaying one project over another. Although I can say in honesty, Glendale can support an ask of MAG that they look into every option to accelerate SR 30. But I do need everybody to understand that Glendale is opposed to accelerating any project if it results in a greater cost to our region, or if it means West Valley projects are delayed. The public-private partnerships, when I was in the legislature 15 years ago, did not carry a lot of support with the members and a lot of the citizens. That they don't like the idea of the thought of taxes paying for it, and then every time you drive it, you have to pay more taxes. I think that's going to be a problem if you try to go that direction. But right now, if May can look in and find maybe some other options, wonderful. But as of right now, we're not going to. My city will not support delaying anything that's going to support one project over another. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wires. Mayor Osborne.
Yep, Mayor Wires, I can appreciate that. I'm not looking to MAG to delay projects across the region to accelerate State Route 30. I think what we are looking for is a serious look at how to deliver the project faster. And if there are, we're not looking for toll roads. I don't know if that's what Mayor Wires was referring to, but the P3 concept that in some cases includes financing, and there's a lot of capital that's sitting on the sidelines right now looking for infrastructure projects that they can be a part of. So I don't know if that's a consideration or if there's legislation that restricts us from doing that. I think that was a great point that has been kicked around. But if you had I guess at this point you're already designing, but maybe it's a design, build, finance, operate, maintain for a period of time. Is that a scenario that is legal, I guess, first, and is something that's possible moving forward?
Madam Chair, Mayor Osborne, yeah, that's essentially what we did with South Mountain Freeway. At the end of the day, the financing will still be paid from the program. As an example, some of the costs within the 479 freeway program or the financial model are from the bonds issued for South Mountain Freeway a number of years back. But that's certainly something that we can do a little bit more legwork into and be able to show exactly what that means.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Chair Wheatley.
Thank you. Yes. Councilmember White.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the presentation, John. Thank you. I'm just sorry for my tardiness. Literally just getting back from DC, had the opportunity to hear from Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy. And I think when we think about projects, we want to think about things completed. And yes, I'm so excited that you're combining, 2 and 3 of the central section. That's going to accelerate things. Yeah, 2035 is far away from now, and I think that a lot of us, we stand here representing cities, constituencies, but we're also people using the roads and the highways, right? So I think that delaying projects in the area, I think that might run the risk of us not having projects completed well. And I think what Maricopa County is known for is doing things very well. And so, yes, I want the most efficient, effective methods to be used, but I really believe that the planning process can't be accelerated because the administration and the state at the time didn't allow for it to happen. So I think that we need to work with the time we've been given and produce a product that's going to sustain the valley's growth instead of inhibit any of it in the short term.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Mayor Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Bullen, for your comments. I think as I listened to this, you made the comment that you work really hard to have a balanced sequence of projects within MAG. And I think that's important as you look towards, funding these projects, presenting them, and also maybe combining and speeding them up. Doesn't that happen maybe some unintended consequences to other projects throughout the region?
Mayor Wheatley, members of the TPC, yeah, certainly putting together the freeway program itself, as you look at projects of this size, that's one of the biggest challenges is how we sort of reorient all the projects, how we line them up. As an example, when we had presented the initial concepts back in February, we were looking at doing I-17 Loop 303 system interchange with the general purpose lanes all this summer. Following that presentation, we actually got feedback from ADOT themselves that the construction market wouldn't be able to support both projects going at the same time. And so there's this sort of being cognizant, being aware of what's going on in the construction market, making sure that it's balanced. You can only get so many projects out the door at once, and there's only so much cash available. So
well, what I heard too, there's sometimes very little flexibility in funding options for these projects. I mean, they're set and they can escalate in cost. So, I mean, to echo Mayor Wires, you're welcome to look at that. But at the end of the day, I think you have a balanced sequence of projects throughout the community that affects everybody and get the work done as timely as we can to save the monies that we have available. So, I mean, that's where Mesa would be, is staying on the template that we are today. I have to support my East Valley chair here.
Thank you. I can appreciate that. I do absolutely understand the need for this project and understand rapidly growing communities from TSMC, from one area of the valley to LG and my community to Buc-ee's. We all have significant needs and demands. And so with that, I would be supportive of a informal analysis of this opportunity, but also likewise want to recognize the work that has taken us to get to this point throughout MAG and developing all of those priorities throughout the region. And so with that, recognizing everything is thoughtfully, carefully planned, and that it could have potential changes with other projects and timelines that this analysis may drive. So I could support something informal, but also recognizing that we've done a tremendous amount of work to get where we are today, and we all have significant needs. And so I support the project as it is today. I know this is for action today. Are there any additional comments here in person? Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Excuse me. I'm going to definitely state in the aspect that there is, I understand the need over there, but on the same token, we're looking at our needs in out here on the East Valley, on what's going on in our growth that we're having out there as well, and our concerns. So we don't want to delay or put off, things that are planned now in our areas as well, because, granted, 2035 is a long distance away, but in the same token, we're talking basically a lot of the same things in our area as well, and we don't need to move it off to 2045. So I want to keep it going and, keeping moving forward as much as possible and doing a complete study.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Wheatley?
Yes, I believe that's Mayor Anderson. You have
Yes,
the
it is. I don't have a whole lot to add to what has been said. I'm right in line with Mayor Wires, Mayor Freeman, and yourself. Mayor Wheatley, we have a plan and we should stick to that plan. Certainly, taking an informal look at alternatives is something we should always be open to, but I think we should go forward as planned, and I strongly support that.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. Any additional comments or questions from committee members online? Mr. Camps. please.
Yeah, thanks. The first meeting, so a little hesitant to speak up, but we do stand in support of the request from Buckeye. I know transportation funding is complicated and it's difficult, but I will just share, because we were heavily involved in the legislature debate, freeways were a priority from the legislature. State Route 30 was discussed ad nauseum. It was a priority from the conversations I was in. And so, we would strongly encourage you to pursue whatever you're comfortable with trying to accelerate that program.
Appreciate your comments, Mr. Camps. The additional. Well, this has been a great discussion. With that, this
I'm
is.
so sorry. I was not quick enough to take my mute button off. Sorry, Julia. Chair.
The floor is yours, Ms. Daniels.
Thank you. There's the old adage that if we continue to do what we've always done, we'll continue to get what we've always gotten. And I really feel strongly that now is the time for some strong leadership when it comes to changing some of the modeling and some of the ways that we fund projects in not just our region, but obviously we're working on this across the state as well. And so some creativity, some desire to find alternative ways of delivery and methods of delivery, alternative ways of funding, I think are critically important for us. And I'm not sure that we spend enough time considering what options are available to us as leaders of the region. And I would like us to, and maybe obviously today's not the exact moment where we do this, but we are not going to move the needle in the long term if we don't consider some alternatives. And so I just want us to sort of put it out there and say it might be time to dig a little deeper as we continue to rebalance this program year over year. I was TPC chair. I feel for you, Julia, when we had to take $900 million out of the program based on the economic conditions. That was not an easy task, and it was followed by Mayor Giles, who put $1 billion back into the program the year before me. So he was the good guy and then I was the bad guy. And I remember how that felt. I remember some of the phone calls that I got from growing communities and from developers and from others who were struggling with that. But we need to dig deeper. And I think we have a window of time to be able to do that. So maybe not today, but over the next, 6, 8, 12 months, we really need to, I think, consider some alternative forms. And staff's been great about considering that and sort of listening to us, but I would like us to really explore some additional and new models.
Great, thank you, Ms. Daniels. And that could be included in an informal analysis. Yeah, okay. I did have another, yes, Councilmember White.
I move the approval of the draft Prop 479 Freeway Life Cycle Program contingent on finding of air quality conformity.
I have a motion and I will entertain a second. I have to open it up for members of the public to comment if there are any. Is there anyone that wishes to second the motion? A second. Thank you. And have we received any requests to speak on this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, we have not.
We have not. And have we received any online written comments?
No, we've received no online written comments.
Okay, great. We do have a motion. Councilmember White, a second by Councilmember Poston. Councilmember or Vice Mayor? Councilmember. Okay, thank you. Will those participating online please take part in the voice vote by turning on your cameras, unmuting your audio, and please leave your camera on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of all those in the room and all those online? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, please say nay. Okay. The motion does pass. Staff can, excuse me, we still have.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we could hear from Scott Anderson, please.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes.
The motion does pass. Excellent. Thank you. We will move on to item number 7, and this item's on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Carrie Katzler, the transportation planner. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, members of TPC. Today, I'll be providing an update on the development activities for the Proposition 479 Arterial Life Cycle Program. The Arterial Life Cycle Program, or the ALCP, is the arterial street component of the Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Investment Plan, or the RSTIP. The policies were developed by the ALCP Working Group, which was approved by MAG Regional Council. And the policies act as the guide for the administration and maintenance of the program. And as a reminder, the Prop 479 ALCP is funded entirely through half-cent sales tax or regional funds. So outlined within the RSTIP, there's a total of 91 projects funded in the program from phase 1 through phase 4. The estimates were generated in fall of 2020. So the RSTIP amounts originally were expressed in those 2020 constant dollars. In the draft before you, the amounts have been inflated to be expressed in 2025 constant dollars. So here's some key considerations that went into the development of this program. First, as outlined, the program must remain fiscally constrained. We cannot reimburse more than we receive in revenue. This is consistent with the Prop 400 ALCP. Revenue collections begin January 1st of 2026, so sequencing the projects was really crucial. As outlined in the RSTIP, the projects were originally slotted into 5-year phases. So this effort over the past several months was to program each project into specific fiscal years rather than those 5-year blocks. Within that effort, adjustments to projects and phasing were made in accordance to the policies and procedures. Some examples include advancements and deferments. If an agency has a project that was originally in phase 3, that is a higher priority than a project that was originally in phase 2, we can make that one-for-one swap. And finally, project change requests, which I will discuss in more detail later. So again, originally outlined in the RSTIP, the projects were slated into 5-year phases. This did not notate exact fiscal years for the projects to be programmed in, only the 5-year periods. So phases 1 through 4 are funded through Prop 479, and phase 5 is the unfunded portion and exceeds beyond the 20-year horizon. I also want to emphasize that the ALCP is a reimbursement-based program. The member agencies implement the projects and submits for reimbursement for the region's share of the project. The region covers up to 70% of the amount outlined or the amount outlined within the RSTIP. So for example, if an agency has a project that's programmed for fiscal year 2040, that's a really high priority. If they have the capacity, they can go out and build that project, and the reimbursements would still remain programmed in fiscal 24. There are opportunities like closeout or advancement outlined within the policies that could allow them to get reimbursed earlier, but without that availability, it would remain in that outlined fiscal year. So the draft before you was created by MAG staff and with the input of member agency technical staff. It was circulated among the ALCP working group to review and receive feedback. Any feedback that we did receive, we addressed, and if necessary, it was incorporated into the draft before you. All program reimbursements align with projected total revenues, as again, the program is fiscally constrained. So this item serves as an opportunity for members to review the draft fiscal year 26 Prop 479 ALCP before it's brought through for action next month. So this is the Prop 479 ALCP. I recognize that this is a bit overwhelming and is a lot of information. So I'm going to walk through how one would review their agency's projects and what really is in this document. So we'll break down the top items here first. So from left to right, the first categories on the ALCP workbook is the project title and the identification code. Next is budget information. So first is the RSTIP amount as stated in 2020 dollars, and next is that expressed in 2025 constant dollars. Next is the unfunded portion, if that's applicable. The next several items are formula checks that are within the workbook itself to ensure that everything is in alignment. Fund type is to indicate that it is RAR funded. Work phases is broken out into design, right-of-way, and construction, and it outlines the fiscal year for work. Next is the RSTIP phase it is in, again as a quick reference, and then lastly is status. All projects are currently planned but will be updated as the program moves forward. So moving along and further to the right of the document, you will see each fiscal year broken out for the phases. So this is an example of phase 1 marked in blue, and it continues through the rest of the phases as well. So let's walk through an example of how you would actually read a project. So let's use a phase 1 project from the city of Chandler. You can see it here on the bottom of your screen. So as a reminder, here is the key that is along the top of the workbook. First, you can see the project title, which is Kyrene Road, north of Chandler Boulevard to Loop 202, and the ID. Moving further along, you see the RSTIP amount originally in 2020 dollars is 11.1 million, and that amount brought into 2025 dollars is 13.8. You can see this project is in phase 1 of the program, and the reimbursements have been programmed as design in fiscal year 26, right-of-way in fiscal year 27, and construction in fiscal year 28. So hopefully that makes that big document less overwhelming. So here's a quick timeline of where we've been. So in April of 2025, this exact item was presented to the Transportation Review Committee. Here we are today presenting to you all, and it's on the agenda for Regional Council as well to be heard for, on information. Tomorrow at Transportation Review Committee, the draft fiscal year 2026 ALCP will be presented for recommended action. And that item will be brought through the policy committees in June for approval of the draft fiscal year 26 Prop 479 ALCP on June 25th by Regional Council. So we understand that there is an interest for changes to member agencies' projects, and this is allowable through the project change tool that's outlined in section 220 of the Prop 479 ALCP policies and procedures. So pending approval of the program by MAG Regional Council, the intent is to bring the project change tool to be made available to member agencies on June 26th, 2025. And the project change requests would be submitted on or before July 15th of 2025. After that, we will work with member agencies to ensure that all appropriate data and information is collected. That will be reviewed and evaluated by a street committee in September to be brought through MAG policy committees in October of this year. So for reference, the project change request process is typically done in the spring and in tandem with the annual update of the ALCP. With this being the first year of the Prop 479 program, we understand that there's immediate need to change those projects out as soon as possible. So we'll be doing this one-time adjustment to accommodate those needs. But going forward, this will continue in the normal schedule of occurring in the spring during the annual update. Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Any questions, comments from committee members? Any online? Great. Thank you so much for your presentation, Carrie. We will move on to item number 8. This item, update on the State Route 85 corridor transportation study, is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Chris Gottsacker, the transportation engineer. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Transportation Policy Committee. I'm pleased to be presenting an update on the State Route 85 transportation study to you today. We're here today because of the regional significance of this corridor. We're here today because of the regional significance of this corridor, it being a critical freight route for the region, existing traffic safety issues, and rapid development in the area. So I'll be presenting an overview, kind of highlighting the significance of SR 85, the study updates, the process and its findings, and then finally conclude with the recommendations that have come out of this study. So let's get oriented. In case you don't know, SR 85 is in the Far West Valley in Buckeye. Specifically, we're looking at a section of the corridor south of I-10 to just north of the Gila River. This is approximately 5 miles of SR 85, and we're looking at 5 intersections from Broadway down to Hazen, of which one is currently signalized, MC 85. SR 85 is 2 lanes in each direction, and it is a divided highway. So looking at this aerial image, it's kind of flipped. So southbound is on the right side, but if we're heading eastbound on Broadway Road and we want to go to the I-10, so we are going to travel northbound on SR 85, we're currently stopping at SR 85 southbound, waiting for a gap in traffic, moving across to Broadway, going to our left turn lane and stopping, waiting for a gap in traffic, ensuring that there's not a conflict with the westbound Broadway traffic as well, and finally making our left turn. The existing lanes of SR 85 are the future frontage roads. This is going to eventually be a full freeway facility, looking something like this, where the freeway will be going over the crossroads. I mentioned there are 5 study intersections: Broadway, Southern, Baseline, MC 85, which again is currently signalized, and Hazen Road. The other intersections besides MC 85 are what we call 2-way stop controlled. This just means that the minor road approaches, in this case the eastbound and westbound approaches, have stop signs, while SR 85 is free flow. In the study area, there are 2 canal crossings. The top is a figure of the Roosevelt Canal, and the bottom being the Buckeye Canal. During the study, we determined that there are no anticipated impacts to the canals, but they will be a stakeholder when improvements are being made. And there is 1 railroad crossing, the Union Pacific Railroad, right near Baseline Road. So because of SR 85 is a divided highway, each intersection is really a pair of intersections. And we kind of walked through moving through these 2 intersections. But this is looking at Hazen Road for all 3 figures. And you can kind of see in this top right figure, if you're on Hazen going westbound, you really have a lot to look at. You even need to determine how much storage length is in front of you in that in-between section. You need to judge the gaps twice if you're making, as you're passing through the intersections. So it's really a lot to look at. Going to the regional significance of the corridor, kind of mentioned this will be a future freeway facility. It's the selected corridor alternative for the future I-11, going from the Mexican border up west of Phoenix. And as touched on with John's presentation on FLCP updates, this will be the westbound or the western segment terminus of the future SR 30, right around the Hazen Road intersection. And so that means this will eventually require a full system interchange. So given all of this context, the reason we're doing this study, as I mentioned at the very beginning, is the significant development activity along the corridor and interest in development. Previously and still currently in some sections of the corridor, a lot of agriculture, shifting to industrial, mixed use, residential. And so ADOT requested that MAG establish a sort of baseline vision for improvements to the corridor. And so with that, we set out to develop near-term and long-term alternatives, including developing high-level design concepts for these alternatives, determining the design constraints and potential right-of-way needs. And then finally, recommending an alternative and prioritization of improvements, assuming that improvements for all 5 intersections or funding for all 5 intersection improvements would not be available at one time. So I wanted to touch on the growth and development a little bit more. So this is just a dot map where one dot is 5 people of population in 2023. And we projected population in 2050. And I'll just go back and you can really see the projection of population really exploding. And then we did the same for employment. So this is 2023 and projected employment in 2050, just really, really exploding. Lots of projected development, and highlighting how this development happens is through a lot of that freight. And so during our analysis, we also determined that on some segments of this section of SR 85, 32% of the traffic are heavy vehicles such as semi-trucks, carrying all of that economic activity through the region. As part of our analysis, we looked at historical crash data. And from the 5 most recent years of crash data from ADOT, 2019 to 2023, there are 179 crashes on this section of SR 85. 74% of these crashes were at our study intersections. And over this time period, there were also 7 fatal crashes. All of these were at intersections. And 6 out of 7 of these fatal crashes were at the stop-controlled intersections. So one was at MC 85, which again is currently signalized. The others were at the eastbound and westbound approaches at either Broadway, Southern, Baseline, or Hazen. So this is a heat map of all of the crashes. And we definitely see a hotspot at Baseline Road, another hotspot at Broadway, followed by Southern and MC 85 having a similar crash frequency over the last 5 years, and then finally at Hazen. We also looked at operations, and today all intersections operate at an acceptable level of service. However, if we do nothing, by 2050, 3 of these intersections will be failing in both directions during all periods of the day. So it's clear that we need to do something, and from a safety perspective, we need to be doing something yesterday. So we started this study in July. In December, we had a stakeholder workshop consisting of MAG staff, a consultant, ADOT, and City of Buckeye staff to determine the alternatives that we would be analyzing as a part of this study. In April, we received the draft report documenting the evaluation and analysis results, and ultimately proposing a recommendation of signalization for the corridor. So we're here. We've received comments from the stakeholders. We'll incorporate any comments received today as well. And we're expecting the final report to be complete near the end of the month. So the alternatives that we decided to analyze during that December 2024 meeting, we focused on 2 time horizons, the short term and the long term being that future interchange configuration. The 2 alternatives that we analyzed were traffic signals and roundabouts. And it's important to note that the alternatives are really sets of alternatives. So we looked at traffic signals only for the short term and long term, or roundabouts only for the short term and long term. We did not mix and match due to budget and study timeline constraints. And we considered several different evaluation criteria, but really I'll focus on operations, safety, and infrastructure impacts today. So the results for roundabouts, the advantages of roundabouts are that they tend to be incredibly safe, especially for fatal and serious injury crashes due to the angle of crashes that occur in them and the lower speeds. However, operationally, our analysis determined that they would fail in the short term at several of our intersections and ultimately just perform worse than signals. And there will be right-of-way and infrastructure impacts due to their construction. For signals, operationally, perform adequately for both the short-term and the long-term periods that we analyzed. And they do perform well for safety over the existing condition of stop sign control. So it will be an improvement on what we're seeing today and over the last 5 years. Signals also have greater local agency support due to the ease of implementation and the pace at which we can implement them. There are also right-of-way and infrastructure impacts to implement traffic signals, though. So with that, the recommendation, again, is to implement traffic signals along the corridor. And I mentioned that there will need to be a phased approach as funding is available. The recommendation is to first signalize Broadway Road. This intersection has the most traffic volume flowing through it due to its proximity to I-10. Second, at Baseline Road, due to the crash frequency that we saw at the with the heat map. Third, at Southern Avenue. Fourth, at Hazen Road, and then finally improvements to the existing signalized intersection at MC 85. So again, we're here. We've received the draft report, submitted comments. We're actually meeting in a couple of weeks or in a week to go over those comments with the stakeholders. We'll incorporate any comments received here and have the final report near the end of the month. So with that, this item was for information, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris.
Please.
Question from Mayor Osborne.
Yeah, not a question, but just a couple comments. One is thank you, MAG staff, for doing the study on this 85 corridor. It is I won't go over all the talking points that you've discussed here, or the study information, but one of the most dangerous, or several of the most dangerous intersections in really the state. And you would think, as you depicted it there, and the small amount of traffic that was shown on those overheads, seems like it'd be really easy to navigate that and not have accidents. But it's not as much. You can see with the 179 accidents in that area. The roar of applause that you heard is the entire city of Buckeye thanking you for not putting in roundabouts. The traffic signals is our absolute. That's what we're looking for in that area, and we think that it's also not a throwaway solution. Those traffic signals can be used in the ultimate I-11 corridor. We think that would be ideal, I think, moving forward. So appreciate the study, appreciate all the attention that MAG is paying to that corridor, and look forward to getting things done out there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions or comments on this agenda item? It is for information and discussion today. Great. We appreciate it, Chris. Ed, for the next item, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. How long do we expect that presentation?
Mayor, to do that, the item number 9 would take longer than we have before we need to be done. So we'll push that to a future agenda.
Future agenda item. Okay.
And not a problem. It's not time sensitive. It is not for action.
Okay. Thank you. We will hear from you next time, Tim. We appreciate you being prepared for that. We will move on to the legislative update. Samantha Kalakulak, Government Relations Project Manager, will present the update. I know it's been very quiet at the state legislature, so we'll see what update you have for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Wheatley, members of Transportation Policy Committee. We are in the 19th week of the legislative session. The legislature has taken a recess, with the House coming back yesterday for a light floor session and adjourning again until June 4th, with the Senate adjourning until May 28th. At this point, the governor has signed 214 bills and vetoed 138. And with that, here's an update on the bills that we're still tracking. SB 1086, Transportation System Performance ADOT, did pass out of the House floor on a party line vote, but was vetoed by Governor Hobbs. HCR 2035 and its companion SCR 1004, the vehicle mileage tracking tax prohibitions. HCR 2035 is still awaiting that third read in the House, which could then be flipped with the Senate resolution, but there has been no additional movement at this point. Shifting movement at a federal level, outdated formula funding for transportation has been an issue that MAG has been tracking for many years now, and as a rapidly growing state, we have not seen our fair share in apportionments from federal funding formulas based on our increasing population. Congressman Stanton has introduced a resolution named the Highway Formula Fairness Act that would allow for the decennial census to be considered when calculating apportionments, which would allow for more updated population data to be utilized. The resolution also directs the Secretary of Transportation to conduct a modernization study and looking at methods and data used to apportion highway funds. We will continue to track this legislation accordingly, and that completes my report, Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Samantha. Any questions? Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Are there any requests for membership for an item or future agenda? Are there any comments or announcements from our membership? Okay. With that, our next meeting of the Transportation Policy Committee will be on Wednesday, June 18th, 2025 at 11:30 a.m. With no further business, today's meeting is adjourned. Thank you.